Hi, everybody, and welcome to Geek Speak Louder than Nerds, a weekly rewatch podcast for TV shows, movies, and this week, the return of a Jedi that has been trying to stop the Empire from striking back.
Oh, wait, I got one. What about A Force Awakens?
My name's Nick Farrow.
I'm Mike Hilty?
How you doing today, Mike?
Confused? Although I shouldn't be confused. I know your feelings about the new trilogy, so I
That and
get
it was
that.
your idea to do the bit, so
Ouch. I feel like the writers who wrote Joe Coy's jokes at the Golden Globes. That hurt.
as you should be. Can I say to you the daunting task of cutting out the original banter from last week's episode to replace with our Golden Globes talk that we decided to do last minute should have only taken me about 35 minutes, but my computer suddenly decided to take a crap. I almost lost everything I did.
Oh
And then
no.
on top of that, when I finally got everything working again, cutting and editing was just like 2 extra seconds to do. So like I'd select something and then I'd hit cut and it wouldn't cut. And then I'd wait and then it would cut. And then I'd go and paste it and it would wait and then it would so like everything suddenly took infinitely longer. It was so awful. I actually got the episode done ready to go at about 2:45. So
Oh no.
right just in time for the 3 a.m. drop. Anyways, it worked out. Hopefully, nobody will notice.
I'm sure it will work out just fine.
It's too late.
Yeah,
The episode's
I
already
knew.
live.
Yeah, so it's all good.
But you know what also we found out this week?
What's that?
New episodes of Bluey dropped.
I was so excited when I saw that. And it's ridiculous. It's a kid show
Oh, it's
or
not.
it's an adult show masquerading as a kid show.
There you go.
I immediately called my wife, who was at home because the daycare that she works at closed because we've gotten like a foot of snow. But I called her immediately and was like, this is not a drill. New Bluey episodes are out. It's 10 episodes, so that's a good chunk,
Yeah, 90 minutes of programming.
give or
They're
take.
all about
Yeah.
9 minutes long, so it
Mhm.
was
So,
that we had a nice little Saturday morning here at our house. We I went out and I got duck donuts for everyone
ooh,
for breakfast. I don't know if you've had a duck donut before.
I
They are
have
freaking awesome.
actually. You are the only person that I've talked to outside of this area who has a duck donut.
They
Wow.
just built it. I mean, I guess it's been a while now. They built it summer of 2019, and oh my God, those lines were absolutely ridiculous. But now it's cooled down, and you can go in on a Saturday morning at like 9 o'clock, and there's no wait. You go in, you order your dozen donuts, and you watch them make it fresh. What's your go-to duck donut?
Oh, I just keep it simple with the peanut butter and chocolate
That's a good
one.
one.
So,
We are particular fans of bacon in the sun in this house, but they've got a new Oreo one called like Oreo Boardwalk, and it's just
mm,
essentially the Oreo, but they also put vanilla frosting like drizzle over top of it. It's
mhm.
so good. So I got
So,
them duck donuts. I brought it home, and then we turned on Bluey, and we watched all 10 episodes. What would you say was your favorite episode that they added this time around?
um, it's a tough call. I had a couple that I did like, but I think the one that I think that I'm gonna go back to more than all the others, I really like the one with the when they're at the chemist or a pharmacy and
TV
the
shop.
TV shop one. I like
That
that
one was
one.
cute.
How about you?
I think my favorite one. See, I always connect to the ones where I can just look over at Julie and be like, "You seeing this shit?" And she's just like, "I don't recall signing an agreement with them that they can just steal stuff from our lives." Because that's all they're doing. And the first episode where they go to the beach, where they get into the hotel room and Chili can't relax.
Relax.
I just looked over at Julie and she goes, "Shut up." Because that's so her. She has no idea how to relax. And this show just does that. And then the very next episode where Bandit's just like staring off into space. And I'm just, and then she's looking at me. I'm just like, I totally get what he's doing right now.
Well, and both of those, I don't know what it is. This group of 10 episodes felt very like the parents feel off in these 10
Yeah,
episodes. Well, again, another episode where Bandit's concerned about his health and
yeah.
goes to the
He's
doctor for that
exercising.
exercise video. He also has to go to the chemist to get vitamins or vitamins, as the Brits call them, and
Yeah.
such. And then also he's just staring off into the nothingness for that stickbird episode. And then he
He's
has to get rid of all of his anger or frustration and he throws it in the sea. Like, what is this? And then Chili can't relax, and that's literally it. But
mhm.
still, that's a lot more than I'm used to when the parents are just feel kind of off. I was half expecting that the cricket episode to end with them announcing that they're getting divorced.
What? No!
Whoa! I think that would be a step too far for Bluey, but it feels like this show is building towards something, and they did announce that half-hour episode that's coming out this summer. I'm like, that's like a full-length movie for Bluey, so maybe there's going to be something.
I feel like if they were to put out a movie, it could make easily a
Oh
billion
my God.
dollars.
That's a billion-dollar box office right there.
I feel like if they release something now, it's Bluey at the height of its powers.
Oh yeah.
Whereas you have something like Paw Patrol that missed the mark on that.
It did.
They should
But
have
did you
released
see the
something.
returns on Paw Patrol? Like
Well,
they made it for
it's
cheap and
it's
it
cheap,
played
yeah.
for a while. So like it had amazing legs. But I mean, Bluey is a force to be reckoned with, especially you know that it would make a lot of money just simply because today Julie tells me she was just scrolling online and it turns out everyone is wondering what's wrong with Bandit. She read a news article about how millennial moms relate to Chili because she can't relax on vacation. And I'm just like, kids aren't reading these articles. These are
No.
for adults. Like,
And if you make it a solid 90-minute movie, it doesn't need to be that long
it's like
or
10
anything like
episodes.
that. Yeah.
They obviously have the writing down where they can pull on your heartstrings and make it for not just children. Like I've never cried so much watching a children's television program,
No,
which
no.
is why I absolutely don't believe it is a children's television program. Like kids shows aren't meant to make your parents cry. Like that's
Mhm.
not what it's for.
They had a couple instances this for these 10 episodes where it's like, oh wow, that's a really great lesson. Not listening to sat nav is a great metaphor for why your parents being bossy isn't exactly what you think it is.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
like my daughter when like that during that Stickbird episode when Bluey comes and talks to Bingo about getting rid of all that anger. Gwen was like, "It's a really great lesson." I'm like, "Shut
Mhm.
up! I know, like I get it. Relax."
It's so funny. Lily is our Bingo. Like Bingo stares at those kids and she goes, "They're my rivals now." We just both look at Lily and we're like, "That's her." It's so great.
I wrote an article for Scribe about my favorite TV couples, and my wife was like, "You should write about Bandit and Chili." I'm like,
Right?
"Absolutely. Yes."
Except for the fact that they put all of us to shame.
A little bit. A little bit.
Where the show, it's perfect. It's the perfect television show.
I agree. Speaking of perfect television, should we get into this episode?
Perfect. Oh, are we doing a different show this week? Oh no, I just got confused because I thought we were doing Ahsoka Part 6. Far, far away.
Once upon a time, Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars. Now this is a story all about how. Have you ever had a dream you do so much you could do anything?
The episode opens to a pod of Purgle traveling through hyperspace. Inside the ship, Hu Yang is pondering that now he really has done it all, and Ahsoka brings up the stories he used to tell them at the Jedi Temple when she was growing up.
Ah, yes. History of the Galaxy Parts 1, 2, and 3.
Ahsoka remembers Volume 1 nostalgically, and Hu Yang offers to tell her one of the stories, but she says not right now. Picking up that Ahsoka is being a bit cagey, Hu Yang asks if perhaps she has a story for him. Ahsoka admits that she didn't tell Hera that Sabine went with Baylan willingly. Hu Yang can't believe it and finds it troubling.
That's impossible! No!
Ahsoka seems more annoyed than anything else. Sabine could have ended this. No Thrawn, no war. And Hu Yang is quick to add, no Ezra. Ahsoka is bummed that Sabine was fated to make that choice because she didn't have enough time to prepare her to make the right one. Hu Yang counters that the Force can give her insight, but it doesn't give all the answers. Perhaps for Sabine, this was the only choice.
I rolled my eyes so hard during that when I watched it the first time because, come on, we're responsible for our own choices. There's always situations where it's like, this is a no-win scenario, but I still gotta make a decision.
One could argue if Ahsoka and Sabine had found the orb and left to go to the other galaxy, how are they getting there? Like, apparently you need a giant hyperspace ring, so how are they getting there?
Right.
Like, were they gonna, I mean, I guess they could have gone and talked to space whales.
Dory.
And gone in a space whale, but then they would have been there and they would have had to try and find space whales to get home, and they also would have, had to deal with Thrawn. Like, it would have been a same problem, just different circumstances. Like,
Sure, but I don't know. It's a tough call because what do? Do you think of your own selfish, part of the mission where you want to go find Ezra, or do you think of what the mission entails, which is we need to figure out how to stop Thrawn. And she chose Ezra, and that's fine. It is what it is.
Yeah, I think Ahsoka's concerned that Sabine's being emotional and that leads to the dark side. She's more concerned in that respect. I guess the good news, Ahsoka, she's not very good at using the Force, so it's not really going to be all that damaging if she does go to the dark side. But Ahsoka then says to Hu Yang that maybe she would like to hear one of his stories. And so he begins as we go to the opening title.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
So in the brig of the giant hyperspace ring ship, which I'm sure has a name, but they just haven't told us yet, Sabine is laying down on a bench with binders on her wrists. Baylan shows up at the door and she complains that she was hoping for a room with a view. He tells her that perhaps she could be using this time for quiet reflection, and she's like, "Don't tell me how to live my life, Dad." She then reminds him that they had a deal, but he walks away, leaving her shouting after him.
This deal is getting worse all the time.
On the bridge, Morgan asks about the prisoner and if he still plans to follow through on the promise to find Ezra. He believes that her focus to find Ezra blinds her and she may yet be of use to them. The droid pilot interrupts and informs them that they have arrived at their destination. The droid pilot interrupts and informs them that they have arrived at their destination, Peridia, the ancient home world of the Dathomiri.
I had a question about that.
Oh, yeah?
If they're the witches of Dathomir, which Dathomir is a planet in our galaxy, or not our galaxy, but the galaxy that they came from, but they're really from Peridia, shouldn't that make them the witches of Peridia? Shouldn't they be Peridians? They refer to them as Dathomiri multiple times over the next few episodes, and it just bothered me every time. I'm like, but they're not. Like, if this is where they came from, then this is where they are from. Like, if I'm from Earth, if I move to Mars, I'm an Earthling. But if I leave Mars and I come back to Earth, I'm not a Martian, am I?
That's a great question. And when you eventually decide, I think I'd rather live on Mars instead of Earth, then we can cross that bridge when we get there.
Well, that bridge has already been long crossed.
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
Matt Damon made it look really easy.
Oh, yeah. Baylan says, "Allow me to repeat the previously on as well as information that was mentioned multiple times in previous episodes regarding Star Whales, the Jedi Temple, and ancient stories."
He's quite clever, you know.
Morgan makes a wild claim that her people used to capture and ride the star whales in the days before time was counted.
And the fridge doesn't like me.
I know.
Balin, ignoring Morgan's weird flex and having a conversation of his own, says the whales used to come here to die. It's a graveyard. Boy.
It was like sitting in a nursing home, just listening to people talk at each other. Like they were having their own separate conversations the entire time. I'm like, what is happening? No, they're not talking to each other. They're talking at each other.
They're not even talking at each other. They're just talking around each other, and they're just doing their own thing. It makes no sense. We get a shot of a ship approaching the planet. As it does, it flies past the giant skeletal remains of a dead Purgle.
Back in her cell, Sabine is collected by a couple of guards and loaded onto a shuttle that departs for the surface. It's a bumpy ride down, but once through the clouds, we are privy to a giant statue of a lady coming up from the ground, and we cut outside to see there are several of these giant statues.
Long have I desired to look upon the kings of old.
They see a structure built into the mountains, and they land on the top. As they exit the ship, they see a group of 3 women dressed in red and using the Force to do some strange witch stuff with floating balls and red lasers.
Phrasing?
Which seems to make Shin uneasy. The witches turn to greet Morgan with a compliment and confirm that she received the voicemails that they sent her in her dreams. She confirms that their visions guided her, and the lead witch is pleased that Morgan came just as Thrawn said they would.
Phrasing.
Morgan is eager to meet Thrawn, and one of the witches tells her to be cool, my baby. He'll be here. One of the witches then looks over at Sabine and claims that she reeks of Jedi. Sabine gives her the best what the face.
I mean, I kind of gave that same look because now for the rest of the episode, the only thing I could think of is that anytime that there was a Jedi on screen, stink lines would be coming from it.
I was like, was Ahsoka like not bathing much? Like what's apparently smelling like a Jedi is enough to get her thrown in jail because the witches pull their balls back out.
Phrasing?
And then make them shoot red ropes at Sabine, tying her up.
Phrasing.
And then the balls float her down to the prison cell as she yells back at them that they had a deal.
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
Back on the landing pad, Balin and Shin are hanging out, taking in the scenery. Shin asks what's bothering Balin, and he tells her this is the land of dreams and madness. Children's stories come to life. What the fuck? Like, what is he talking about?
To be fair, of all the dialogue in this episode, I think his actually makes the most sense.
No. Like,
I was following him.
Yeah, okay. That's
super
fine.
excited to be here. He's in his version of Disneyland.
I don't know. To me, like, hearing that again, that just kind of reminds me of some shit that, like, Willy Wonka and the Gene Wilder version would say. Like, I don't know.
Raining, is it snowing?
The danger must be growing, for the rowers keep on rowing.
Shin says that she knows no such stories, but then he says that's because tales from this galaxy are from the ancient past, long forgotten. Shin says, with good reason, sometimes stories are just stories.
Yup.
Balin tells her that when he was a bit older than she is now, he watched everything he knew burn. He couldn't make sense of it at the time, but when he got older, he started to understand history.
Fall of the Jedi, rise of the Empire. It repeats again and again and again.
Shin asks, will Thrawn bring them power? Balin says that power is fleeting. What he seeks is a beginning to finally bring the cycle to an end. The old stories are true.
He's a bit of a nut job there. I mean, this is by far the most intriguing part of the episode. What does Balin want?
First of all, you can't say that he's a nut job when 5 minutes before this, you were like, I don't know, I was kind of getting it.
No, it's paradoxical, and yet it's true. No, Balin clearly wants something. from this place. The Force is called to him. He thinks something's up here. He's being a little up his butt about it, and he's talking like a weirdo. But like, if you cut through the bullshit, like, there's no reason anyone should listen to him. Everybody should be like, you're batshit, dude. But like, we're watching a television show, so obviously he's onto something. I just want to know what that is. What is it he wants to see? What is it he's here to do? Why does he want? It's so very clear by the end of the next episode that he was helping Morgan as a means to an end just to get here. Why? What is the reason? And I'm very curious about that. And part of the reason that I dislike this season being a truncated 8 episodes is that, like Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, I feel like they're setting up this big thing that they don't in any way bother to pay off this season. And it's like, that's frustrating. Everything that we've led up to, it's like half a movie. I want to see the other half now. And Balin's is, to me, the most interesting of the stories.
I guess, reading through this again, if he just hadn't talked like Rutger Hauer in Blade Runner, like,
Right?
I think I would have maybe appreciated it a little bit more.
So once again, we are in a cell with Sabine because apparently that's the only way to cut around in this episode. She's having a bit of a pity party with herself, and finally she decides to get up and she's pacing back and forth, and she makes the decision she's going to try to use the Force to open the door. I kind of like what they did here, but at the same time it annoyed the crap out of me because it's like, stop doing this. Because like the walls all start to shake a little and you start to hear movement in the rocks and stones, and you're like, oh, she's doing it, and then no, you're doing it, Peter. Yeah, but it turns out no, she's not doing it. Fool you. We suddenly hear the sound of a ship approaching, which is the reason the entire room is shaking. So she looks out the window and she sees a Star Destroyer approaching the tower. A Star Destroyer named the Chimera, because even Thrawn knows that a ship is only as good as its name. And the Chimera looks rough. It's missing hull panels left and right. It's falling apart in some places. There's like a whole chunk of it missing on the one side. Like, this ship has been through the ringer. So you know how Star Destroyers, they have their hangar bay underneath. And so it's just a giant gaping hole. And the Chimera positions its hangar over the erect spire and starts to lower itself onto the giant phallic structure.
Just the tip. Just for a second. Just to see how it feels.
Once the top of the spire has entered the Star Destroyer's hangar bay, we see a full complement of stormtroopers is lined up and ready to meet Morgan, Balin, Shin, and the witches. These stormtroopers look just as rough as the Star Destroyer and are chanting Thrawn over and over again. We cut to their perspective as we see Thrawn in his white Grand Admiral's uniform walking towards the newcomers. And as Thrawn meets up with the leader of the stormtroopers, whose name is Enoch, he's a special stormtrooper. He's got a gold face on his helmet rather than a regular stormtrooper's helmet.
But I'm not getting fooled again. You're a different stormtrooper? Okay, you must be special, right? It's gonna amount to nothing.
Thrawn greets the merchandising opportunity by saying, what was first just a dream has become a frightening reality to those who oppose us. And he thanks the witches for bringing Morgan there. He introduces Enoch as Disney's new stormtrooper toy that every kid's gonna want to have, and indicates that he will be taking point on the loading of the cargo from the tower into the Star Destroyer. Morgan says that it should take about 3 days to move everything over before they can leave.
An acceptable time frame.
The witches then inform Thrawn that Morgan and company brought a prisoner with them, which piques his interest. Balin says he thought she could be of use to them and introduces himself to Thrawn. Thrawn recognizes him as General Balin Skull, and Balin tells him that he parted ways with the Jedi Order long ago. Morgan then tells Thrawn that Sabine Wren is the prisoner, and Thrawn agrees she will be of great use to them.
A little while later, the guards bring Sabine before Thrawn and friends. Sabine asks where Ezra is, and Thrawn indicates that her obsession with finding Ezra will be what reshapes the galaxy.
Just answer the question.
Thrawn indicates that he is prepared to honor her agreement with Baylan and provide her a mount, provisions, and intel to Ezra's last known location. Sabine is a little surprised but cautious.
So that's it? You're just gonna let me walk out of here?
But Thrawn says, "You helped my cause, I shall help yours." He also warns her that if she doesn't make it back by the time they are ready to leave, she and Ezra will be stranded there. Also, Ezra may be dead. She says that if Thrawn survived, then she is sure that Ezra is just fine. They take her downstairs to a giant wolf/hyena creature that she mounts, and Enoch warns her that there are nomads that wander the wastelands and prey upon each other for survival before giving her back her weapons.
Die well.
The door opens and Sabine takes off to look for Ezra. On one of the tower's balconies, Thrawn and friends are watching as Sabine rides away. Shin thinks she is on a fool's errand, and Thrawn agrees with her and says that they may follow her at their own pace. This surprises Shin. She thought they were going to honor their agreement. Thrawn says they are honoring the agreement to allow Sabine to find Ezra, but that doesn't mean that Baylan and Shin can't kill them when she does. Baylan, who apparently is cool with this, takes off, but Shin hesitates and looks at Thrawn with concern before following her master.
The code is more what you'd call guidelines than actual rules.
In the wastelands, Sabine stops to use her scanner to try and find life forms when she gets shot in the chest and is knocked from her mount, in an instance where Star Wars armor actually works.
The one time.
The one time, yeah. It only works when your main character needs to take a shot right in the chest, like Mando in that one episode.
Literal plot armor.
It's interesting. I was wondering about Sabine's armor. Is it Beskar like Mando's armor? Because from what I understood, Beskar is pretty rare and hard to come by. But I guess Sabine's old school Mando. So I don't know. I'm assuming it does because she literally takes a lightsaber to the gauntlet in the next episode and it doesn't cut her arm off. So only Beskar can do that. So it must be Beskar. Which would then explain why she's able to get shot in the chest so many freaking times. The wolf runs off and she yells at it to come back, but then she gets hit again before she pulls her own weapon, just starts murking all the guys coming after her. She takes out a few until she's overwhelmed and they knock her blaster away. She's knocked to the ground as the remaining nomads surround her. But Sabine has had it with these monkey fighting nomads on this Monday to Friday plane and pulls out her lightsaber. She then proceeds to make very short work of the nomads until only one remains and runs away in fear. And I have to say, this fight kicked awesome, all the ass. It was really good. I liked it a lot. I'm glad that she got a minute to showcase how awesome she is as a character. Because every time she pulls out her lightsaber prior to this, she's like such an amateur because she's going up against somebody who's actually trained. Now she's fighting a bunch of amateurs and she looks pretty badass doing it. And even before she pulls the lightsaber out, she looks even better. Every move she does, it's just like so freaking awesome.
It was also a good strategic place to put this fight because otherwise it's just a lot of talking.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot happened in this, so I did appreciate that. Back at the Spire, we get an upskirt shot of the Chimera as we see a bunch of white figures transferring their loads from the Spire into the ship's cargo bay.
Hey, phrasing!
In the map room, Enoch informs Thrawn and Baylan that Baylan and Shin have departed. Thrawn instructs him to prepare 2 attack squads and wait for Baylan's signal. Morgan is concerned the 2 squads won't be enough, and she's kind of not wrong, but Thrawn doesn't want to waste more men than he needs to as their stay in this part of the galaxy has been long and taxing on their resources. He really doesn't care if Sabine and Ezra are killed or simply stranded here, and the same goes for Baylan and Shin.
Back on the plains, Sabine is walking with her wolf mount, which the subtitles are calling Howler. She yells at it for abandoning her and calls it a coward. But it keeps following her at a distance until she finally stops to give him another chance. She mounts up and takes off for a bit before Howler comes to a stop sometime later and starts sniffing around. Sabine dismounts and starts looking around when Howler finds what he is sniffing at. A little turtle snail person whose shell looked like a rock on the ground. The subtitles are calling this guy a toady, so that's what we'll be calling them from here on out. But the little guy pops up and starts running. Sabine holds Howler back, but pulls her blaster on the guy, and he drops to the ground and hides under his shell, refusing to come out until she puts her blaster away. She assures the toady that that Howler won't hurt him if he comes out to talk. She gets down on his level and he approaches her slowly.
I'm not gonna hurt you.
The toady sees the Rebel Alliance symbol on Sabine's pauldron and gets excited. He shows her his necklace also has the same symbol, and she realizes that he must know Ezra. He yells out, and suddenly she's surrounded by other toadies who are all talking to each other in their own little language, but then one of them clearly says Ezra Bridger. They indicate for her to follow, and she tells Howler,
That'll do, pig. That'll do.
We cut over to Balin and Shin inspecting the dead nomads that attack Sabine, and Shin asks if Balin has ever met Ezra. He tells her no. He was too young. He was trained in the wild after the temple fell.
Like me.
He tells Shin that unlike her, Ezra was trained to be a Jedi. She was trained to be something more. Shin then asks if he misses the Jedi Order, and he tells her that there was no future there.
I miss the idea of it, but not the truth, the weakness.
Shin is concerned that if Thrawn wants to leave this place, maybe they should too. Astute assumption at that point.
I mean, the place is a hellhole. There's nothing there.
Balin thinks they wish to leave because there is a power here that scares them. Something here is calling to him, and that's why he wants to stay. Never a good sign when your master is like, I'm hearing shit. I think I kind of want to stay, when you're in the middle of nowhere.
Well, when you're a Jedi, that's see, there's
but he's not a Jedi.
If your
he's
boss
something...
at work starts hearing shit, that's a problem. If your Jedi master starts hearing shit, there might be something to it.
They're interrupted when Shin spots more nomads watching them from a nearby cliff. Balin has other plans. The enemy of their enemy is their friend, after all.
Sabine and Toady finally arrive at the Toady Caravan Village, and Sabine starts to look around as all the little merchandising opportunities stare back at her.
Each sold separately from Mattel.
As the camera slowly pans around, we see Ezra standing behind Sabine at the entrance of one of the tents.
I knew I could count on you, though it sure took you long enough.
Sabine smiles and chides him that they would have been quicker to find him if he had told them where he was going. He always has a plan, just never a good one. He replies, but hey, it worked, as they hugged. Like a brother and sister would hug. Don't get any weird ideas.
He's my brother.
Ezra has a ton of questions for Sabine. She tells him she just wants to enjoy having found him and is glad that he hasn't watched the previous Leons, because if he did, boy, would he be pissed.
So did Ezra in Rebels look like Jesus?
No. The joke was that he looked like Space Aladdin.
You're only in trouble if you get caught. Gotcha! I'm in trouble.
He was Space Aladdin for a while. I think that's just the actor's hair. I don't know. I kind of like his hair. I was really mad at Shin in the next episode when she takes a chunk of it with her lightsaber.
Back at the completely inappropriate spire, Thrawn meets with the witches who have some news. A Jedi is coming to visit with some space whales. Thrawn asks if it could be Ahsoka Tano, and Morgan says, impossible. Thrawn says, have you ever watched a single TV show ever? Jedi, quote unquote, die all the time and come back. He tells her that until they know for certain that she is dead, they will proceed as though she is not. She wants to know everything there is to know about Ahsoka, her homeworld, background, master, and if any space whales show up, destroy them with extreme prejudice. He then turns to the witches and tells them once again he requires the use of dark magic. And it's ominous music and Thrawn grin to credits. So, Nick, what did you think of this episode?
I think the Thrawn introduction was weird to me. Like, it felt very lackluster. I can't even imagine what it would have been like for anyone who had not watched Rebels or read any of the either expanded universe books or canon books even. Like, this is not Thrawn's first appearance. It's his first appearance in live action though, and it's just wild that like this is what they gave him, and they're like, this is your big bad. Like, I was expecting more of a like a Darth Vader style entrance, and the chanting stormtroopers just weren't doing it for me. I don't know. After 5 episodes, we finally get Thrawn and Ezra. Like, that's literally what the show has been about, and I just think it took way too long to get here. Like, at this point, it's like it's about time, and I kind of have lost a lot of steam for the series. This should have come at like episode 3 or 4. They should not have farted around for so long. I get the really bad impression that with all the extra news coming out, the Thrawn stuff for Ahsoka is over, and that the show moving forward is Ahsoka, Sabine, Baylan, and Shin in this galaxy, searching for a way home, and B, whatever it is that Baylan is searching for. And if that's all Ahsoka season 2 is, I'm okay with that, because that means they will have more time to spend delving into this story rather than jumping all over the place. If they try and make it and also we're going to tell you what's going on with Ezra and Thrawn at the same time, that sounds like it'll be another nightmare season, and I don't like that. What about you?
I would largely agree with that, but since I'm not like well versed in Rebels, a lot of the Thrawn stuff, kind of like what you said, was kind of lost on me. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, this guy gets his own special stormtrooper, and like he gets to use dark magic or whatever. Like, well, and here's my question as well. What's the difference between dark magic and the dark side of the Force?
Okay, let me get into this here. This is gonna be my little mini nerd rant.
Damn it! All right,
I know. What did you do? I really, it's short. It's short. It's just people being stupid writing Star Wars. Like, that's all it is. The Force is the Force is the Force. I feel like I've had this conversation already, but I might have had it with somebody else.
I feel like another person named Mike.
It's possible. I've had this conversation with a Mike somewhere. So I don't know. If it wasn't you, it was probably another Mike. You're correct. But the Force is the Force is the Force.
A horse is a horse, of course, of course.
Why they keep pretending like the Witches of Dathomir are using something completely new, and why it looks different is beyond me. Obviously, it's a new thing that they think looks cool for the show, but it's the Force. And that's, I don't like it, because it's like the more you change Star Wars, the less Star Wars it is. Like, if you say that the Witches of Dathomir are Force users who use the dark side of the Force, or use an element of the Force to do whatever it is that they do, then that's one thing. If you make it look completely different and it does completely different things, then that's something completely, totally different. I don't understand why you would do that. It like changes the rules of the universe. It's just kind of irritating. There is no difference. They do shit that Force users can do. For some reason, it just looks different and has a green glow to it.
The problem that I have with this episode, it slides very nicely into my nerd rant.
You know what really grinds my gears? That's not how the Force works. I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore. I got a lot of problems with you people. Now, you're gonna hear about it.
I'm not a huge fan of things where I have to do so much extra homework in order to just understand what the gravity of a certain situation is. I don't really, again, I'm not really that well versed in Rebels or anything like that. So it's like, oh, great. We spend all of this time looking for these two people, and Ezra gets like a couple lines of dialogue, and Thrawn, we get a little bit more from Thrawn at least, but I'm not feeling the gravity of this guy. He needs these witches to like help him out with stuff. Like, we get it. He's a bad guy and he does all the bad guy things. Like, hey, we'll go ahead and let you find Ezra, but doesn't mean that we're not gonna like come up right behind you and kill you. So to me, this is very similar to how I'm sure so many other people felt watching the Marvel. You needed to watch Miss Marvel, you needed to watch WandaVision, you needed to watch a bunch of other stuff in order to understand what all is going on.
You didn't need to watch Secret Invasion, though.
You definitely did not need to watch Secret Invasion. But yeah, I can imagine that was frustrating for people, and I'm frustrated about this because of the extra homework that I had to do. And not only that, It's not like Star Wars is slowing down with the extra content. They just announced a new Rey-centric movie for some strange reason. We have a Mando and Grogu movie for some strange reason. There's even reports that Disney is developing a what-if style Star Wars. The thing is that I don't understand what the purpose of all this extra content is. Are you planning on making this as interconnected and necessary viewing as Marvel is, or are you doing this just to keep Star Wars front and center and to have more content? I don't know. It's frustrating. Dear Lord, you didn't really even do a good job with Rey with 3 movies. Now you're giving her own movie? And we've got 3 seasons, 3.5 if you want to count Boba Fett, of The Mandalorian and Grogu. We really need a movie to wrap this up?
Is it even going to wrap it up?
I don't know. They really are just trying to copy what Marvel's doing. That's the end of my nerd rant.
Do you want to go down that rabbit hole of canon 2 more times? Getting close to the end.
Yeah, let's do it.
You know, my pep always said, if you want to do something right, you make a list.
He's making a list.
I'll put it on the list.
It's quite an impressive list. Thank you.
He's quite clever, you know. For a human being.
In this segment, Mike and I will share our lists of the Star Wars Cinematic Universe, old and new canon alike. I will do my best not to upset everyone with my hot takes, and at the end of these 8 weeks, the end of the 2 remaining weeks we have left, we will do a combined ranking. However, this time we will employ a Trump rule, which we have decided to dub the Sheev rule.
Sheev.
If one of us has it higher on the list, we will wait to talk about it when it is at its highest spot.
An additional note, we will not be including Ahsoka in the initial list. We will wait to add it at the end. Also, we don't include things like the 2 Ewok adventure movies because we didn't feel it was right to include them since we both hadn't seen them in 3 decades. This week, we'll be discussing number 6 through number 4. So, Nick, what is your number 6?
My number 6 is The Mandalorian.
Not too far behind mine.
Where did you have Mando at?
A 7, I think.
7? Oh, that's right. It was last week's. It was like the last one we did. All right. So, Mando. I'm gonna be real honest with you right now. It's probably too high on my list, mainly because of that 3rd season. Like, I don't know how to average it better, but I honestly, thinking about it, I think that 3rd season really knocks it down at least to 8. But I'm gonna keep it at 6 for now.
I was about to say, you know when would have been a great time to think about that? Last week.
I know, right? But here's the thing. Seasons 1 and 2
are really,
honestly,
really great.
They're so good that I would have it honestly, it was up at number 4. And season 3 knocked it down to 6, and season 3 is going to continue knocking it down. Like, I really hated season 3. I thought it was such a departure.
This is my shocked face that you would hate season 3. Well, what did you think of Mandalorian 2.5?
Oh, I loved that episode. That one episode that was all Mandalorian all the time, where he's practicing with the Darksaber, and he's on that cool Halo ring with Vexilon.
There was that weekend where my designers evolved into 5th-dimensional energy beings and left me on my own.
Yeah.
I really liked that episode. That was really good. The next episode with Grogu, or was it the same episode? There's 3 episodes, yes?
Maybe.
He goes to the space ring, and then he goes to Tatooine and he builds his N1 starfighter with Deb from Elf.
You look hilarious. Who sent you?
That actress, whose name is escaping me at the moment. He goes there and he builds his starfighter, and then it's the next episode that he goes and sees Luke and Grogu and Ahsoka, and then it's the next episode that Boba Fett finally shows back up in his own damn television show. I really liked Mando's arc in that, but I didn't like that he was in the Boba Fett show. Like, I hated that the fact that he was there, but I loved every minute he was in it. So I like all of that better than season 3. Season 3 started out atrocious. It just got worse. The only episode I really liked was the one where it felt like the original seasons, where they go to Jack Black's planet and him and Lizzo send them on their adventure.
That's interesting because I feel like that's the opposite for a lot of people.
It's the episode everyone hates. And I'm like, why? It's the one that's the most like season 1 and 2. Mando goes on an adventure. Like, it has nothing to do with anything else. He just goes on a little adventure on a planet, does a thing for people. That's when Mandalorian is at its best. When he's doing like the A-Team thing, where he's a soldier of fortune who goes from town to town. If you have the money and the need, or whatever the A-Team thing is. I'll cut that in.
If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find them, maybe you can hire the A-Team.
Those episodes of Mando are the best ones, where it's just a fun little like Western story. My absolute favorite episode of The Mandalorian is episode 2 of season 1, where he is on his way back with Grogu to the ship, and the Jawas show up. Like, I really liked that episode. It's so well done. And it's just everything else in season 3 was a mess. And it's really killing my love for the show. Like, it was a perfect show until that happened. Season 2 was kind of like a bridge. When it focused all of Mandalorian's friends showing up, like, that kind of took away from it, but it was still kind of fun. Like, every time, like, oh, there's Bo-Katan. Oh, there's Boba Fett. Ah, there's Luke Skywalker. Like, those are all really cool. So I liked all that. What did you think of Mando?
Yeah, I largely agree that it is starting to become a show of diminishing returns. But the thing that I did like towards the end of season 3 is that there was a little bit more emphasis and focus on the core relationship of Grogu and Mando.
Yes.
Like, so for example, one of my favorite parts is when they finally gave Grogu just a little button that says no.
What do you mean no?
No.
That's it, pretty much. Just that.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Well, yeah, there were those little details, like they put him in the robot, and that was really fun. They gave him his little pea shooters, and he was flipping around with the other Mando kids. That was a good scene. Like, it had good moments.
Yes,
but
it had
the structure of every episode was like an absolute mess.
And therein also lies my big issue, is that the further that they get away from that relationship, the more frustrated I get with it.
Yeah.
Which, come to think of it, like, that's kind of one reason why I wasn't a huge fan of the end of the second season. It's like, you're separating them? Like, why? Like, I get it. I get
point.
Yeah, then it became absolutely irrelevant. But it's weird, the deeper that they get into, like, a lot of the mythology, the less interested I get. And I just want these two to go on adventures, meeting weird people, kind of like what you said. And yeah, the further and further that we get away from that, the less interested I get. That doesn't change the fact that it's still a really cool, fun, inventive show. Probably one of the better Disney Plus shows that's out there, but
oh yeah, it was appointment viewing. Those first 2 seasons, I was there every day. The second episode dropped, I could not wait to watch them because it was good storytelling. There was more show, don't tell. It dropped just enough of the world that it had you questioning, like, what is that? What are those things? The only thing that didn't make sense was those chain code tracers where, like, that helped him find Baby Yoda. Makes no goddamn sense at all. Even a little, like, no idea how that worked. Thankfully, they dropped those fairly quickly, but other than that, like, it gave you little bits of this galaxy and new bits, not just the same old. It gave you little new bits and pieces here, but it was in a familiar setting. The whole first season is just super fun. That prison barge episode, one of the best freaking episodes. Rick Famuyiwa. I apologize if I got that wrong, but he is my absolute favorite director in the entire show. Every episode he's done, save for the first episode of season 3, I believe was his. I think he was absolutely amazing. And the only reason that episode was bad is because of the writing, the structure. It had nothing to do with the directing. He directed it fine. It was just, you know, he did the best he could with an absolute mess of a screenplay. All of his episodes are shot so dynamically with new and inventive things. Like the way that he turned the Mando into like a horror monster in that prison episode was so cool. And then the episode with do it again. Bo Burnham? Not Bo Burnham. Bill Burr. It was a B word. The episode with Bill Burr, the Stormtrooper. That was a really, really good episode. Like, that's great tension filmmaking that rivals like Tarantino. When he's sitting down, you're like, what is about to happen here? I just love that episode too. There's so much to love about this show. So much. It's just, I guess I get really salty about season 3 because it's like night and day. You can't convince me that Jon Favreau was a main writer on this season, because unless he just completely ran out of ideas, it's so different from his previous writing on the other 2 seasons. It's so confusing. Like, it's like a different person was writing these episodes. That was my number 6. What is your number 6?
I'm very surprised it made it this high on my list because, you know, when back in the heyday, when people were like crapping on the prequel trilogy, I was one of those people who was like, ew, the Phantom Menace, blah, blah, blah. But here it is, number 6 on my list.
My number 8.
I gotta eat a little bit of crow on this because I did not think it was gonna end up this high on my list. But there's so many things about this that in hindsight is really, really great. I think the Phantom Menace did make some mistakes, like
some.
I'll try spinning. That's a good trick.
Yeah, quite a few. Like, did you have to kill Qui-Gon this early? But I get it because, you know, it's the only way to be like, okay, fine, Obi-Wan, you can train Anakin and you can him up. Do you really have to kill Darth Maul this quickly?
Now there are 2 of them.
Yeah, that's the biggest one. But
really, those were the biggest ones? Not the you spend way too much time on the floor of the Senate?
There is no civility.
You
only
could call for a vote of confidence.
Is not what it once was.
He's been our strongest
The
supporter.
Senate is full
One who could control the
really
bureaucrats wobbling delegates.
the true rulers
There
of the
is no
Republic,
interest in the
and on the payroll
I
of the
must be
Trade
frank,
Federation.
Your Majesty, there is little chance the Senate will act
This is
on
a
the
rare
inflation.
chance.
Master Valorum seems to think there so.
Will you defer your motion to allow a commission to explore the validity of your accusations?
Attack on our sovereignty now.
Baseless.
After the pod race, the movie grinds to a halt. That's the only thing that really holds it back on my list at number 8. I think The Phantom Menace is actually the best of the prequel movie. It's the most Star Wars of all of them. It's very reminiscent of Return of the Jedi in its structure, which Lucas did on purpose. It's like poetry, it rhymes.
Every stanza kind of rhymes with the last one.
And it's full of amazing music, amazing action scenes. The pod race goes on for way too long, but otherwise is still an amazingly cool and new visual that we never got in Star Wars before. It has Duel of the Fates and its subsequent scene.
Which we have not
Oh my God.
done. This is the first time that we've done this since like the first one. When I said that we would be doing this every single episode. So shame on me.
Failed. I have failed you, Anakin. I have failed you.
We will be talking about that soon. So
yeah, I think A Phantom Menace does everything better that the other prequels did. I like Phantom Menace a lot. It's the one I've seen the most. When that shit came out on VHS, we watched that on repeat for multiple years.
What is your number 5?
This is where I have the Clone Wars micro series. Do you have that one? Did you mention that one yet?
That was my number 10.
Okay. This show is amazing. It's the Bluey of Star Wars. Just five to 10 minute episodes of the most awesome animated Star Wars shit you will ever see. It was Visions before Visions, but it was also canon at the same time. Like, it was like, what if we took just snippets of the Clone Wars and gave you a little adventure? I think my favorite one is the one where Mace Windu is just owning face on all the soldiers, because the episode is told from the perspective of the boy on the hill watching it. And so like people will say like, well, I don't understand. How come Mace Windu can do all that cool stuff, but then like in the movies they don't do any of that cool stuff? And I'm like, because he wasn't doing all that cool stuff. The little kid who had never seen a Jedi, that's him telling the story of what a Jedi did once. He saw a Jedi one time and he took on all of these droids, and it was thousands of droids, and he jumped and he landed next to me and he like threw me his Letterman jacket.
Hey kid, catch.
Wow, thanks, Mean Joe.
And I love how like the metaphor of that is that like these are people telling stories. It's like tales of the Jedi essentially. Like, and they're blown out of proportion because of the fact that they're stories that we tell that grow over time. And each episode had a element like that just really made it really fun. And it built out the world, and it added more depth to, at that time, the prequels, which we didn't have a whole lot of when those first came out. And the micro series really scratched that itch. I loved it.
I mean, I really don't have anything else to add besides I liked it. You know, that's
fair.
That's about it.
It's mind-blowing for me.
It's also been a very long time since I've seen it.
So
I just remember I really enjoyed it when I watched it.
So what is your number 5?
My number
Revenge of the Sith?
No, this is where I have A New Hope.
Really?
No, of course it's Revenge of the Sith. Are you kidding me?
Fool you!
I got you again.
I don't know. You're all over the place.
The main reason why I have Revenge of the Sith slightly above Phantom Menace is because the Order 66 stuff was just so powerful.
Execute Order 66.
And
it is
so tough to watch. I kind of like the darker tone as well. You know, this was the first PG-13 Star Wars movie. I feel like this is the first time that the dialogue didn't completely hold Hayden Christensen back and didn't completely fail him all the way through.
He was better in this one, yeah.
He was much better in this. That fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan was hyped up so much, but it went on entirely way too long.
It did. But you know what? It wasn't until recently that I realized that.
It was too long, and it's way too stylized as well. I still don't completely 100% buy how Anakin goes to the dark side, though. Like, I just...
Oh, read the book. The novelization for Revenge of the Sith.
I'm not
it's so good.
If you have taught me anything so far about any of these expanded universe books or anything like that, I'm not reading any of them because I just don't have time to do that.
Listen. I will tell you this. First off, the novelization of Revenge of the Sith, not expanded universe, because it's the novelization of Revenge of the Sith. So it's the movie book. But they also got Matt Stover, one of the best Star Wars writers, who only did like 4 books, 4 or 5. He only had a few, but like every book he wrote is a banger. And Revenge of the Sith is so good. You will understand why Anakin went to the dark side by the end of that book. And you're right, the movie does a terrible job of showing it. It's like, now he's the bad guy. Like,
they also don't do a very good job of showing how powerful Palpatine is as a Sith, because let's face it, that guy is a million years old. And
no, he wasn't. He was only like 60. He just looks a million because he got space burned.
Right.
By himself.
By himself.
That I never says like, Palpatine, just stop. Like, what are you doing? But that's, you want another, that scene in the book is longer and so cool. Palpatine in that scene is so cool. The episode of Clone Wars where Palpatine fights Darth Maul and his brother, that's how Palpatine was in the book.
What's your number 4? Because I'm assuming it's the same thing that I have at number 4.
You have a daily double? My number 4 is Andor.
Andor.
Yay! Right. We did it. Did we have any doubles on this?
I have a sneaking suspicion that our top 4 are going to be the exact same thing.
Probably. That would be fun. All right. So Andor. How about the best show Star Wars has ever made? And honestly,
dare I say, it's probably the best show Disney Plus has ever done too.
oh, absolutely. I was just about to say it might be better than some of the Star Wars movies, to be honest with you. But like,
well, obviously it is because we have put it this high up.
No. I mean the ones we haven't talked about yet. Like, erase my memory today and show me the original trilogy and Andor. I might put Andor as the best, just solely because of how good the storytelling is and how compelling the characters were, and just the arcs in it. Freaking the guest stars, like you've got Andy Serkis showing up for 3 eps that were amazing, like, and your heart breaks at the end of them. You've got the guy from The Bear in the one arc, and he's just a son of a bitch, just like in The Bear. Like,
yeah.
And then you've got Aunt Petunia. What's the actress's name from Harry Potter? As his mom.
And a speech for the ages.
We've been sleeping. If I could do it again, I'd wake up early and be fighting these bastards from the start. Fight the Empire!
God, that speech at the end. If you didn't cry listening to her tell that speech, you're a heartless monster. And then you've got Stellan Skarsgård's speech about what he does.
I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago from which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do.
And how he has to live with it.
I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see.
Oh my God, every single minute of this show is just awesome. Like, I love it so much.
So what do I sacrifice? Everything!
And you know what? This is the show also that this is a show that I break one of my cardinal rules, is that if I know what's going to happen to you at the end of the day, how much investment should I have? Because I know that you're just going to die. But I love the point that they pick to start this, where it's like, yeah, this guy, he is just a mercenary. That's all he is. Like, he's just looking to make money, and he does not believe in anything.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
What I love seeing from this is that how you slowly but surely build up to, yeah, this guy believes in the rebellion so much, he's willing to sacrifice his life. And that's really great storytelling. Like you said, that's great acting.
The only thing I didn't like about Andor was the absolute waste of that children arc, like they did in those first 3 episodes. Like, that went nowhere and did nothing for nobody. Like, all it did was it showed us that he was adopted by parents, and it gave us a reason to find his sister, who that story arc also just completely dropped the sister story arc. So I don't know, maybe that's coming back in season 2. Honestly, the show got so much more interesting after that first 3 episodes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It didn't matter. Like, I completely forgot about it. Like, oh, the heist arc, awesome. Prison arc, awesome. Final arc, awesome.
Which is interesting because most other Star Wars shows, most other shows on Disney Plus, they don't get this long of a season. So I am wondering who's Tony Gilroy have to say in order to get this to be more than 6 episodes.
Hey there, Tony. Can you come to this room with me real quick?
It just goes to show how if you have a good story, give it as many episodes as it needs.
Exactly. The only thing that held back Andor, honestly, was the release structure. I said this 100 times. Do not make me pause my movie halfway through so you can then show me the next part of it in a week. They should have released the first 3 episodes as one episode, an hour-and-a-half movie, and then a week later, or even if you took 2 weeks off, I wouldn't have cared. Do what the Fear Street thing did on Netflix.
Yeah.
So, like, you could have done it any number of ways, as long as you didn't split up story arcs. And I don't know why they insist on doing it, other than we got 12 weeks of content out of it. And I hate that.
So, yeah, overall, Andor is just one of those shows that is always going to stand out for me because performances are great. The Star Wars mythology around it is great. To give us not one, but 2 like really compelling story arcs, like with the heist and with the prison break as well, that's an accomplishment within itself. Most of the time, it would just be, oh, let's just do one season of the heist and then let's do the prison break after that. So I do give Disney a little bit of credit for just being like, let's just make this into one season.
When they announced Andor, I said, who effing cares? I don't want to watch this show. It is going to be so stupid. A character that gets killed off in a movie that you're doing a prequel to a guy that just died. Like, I don't care at all. I was primed to hate this show just solely because of how bitter I was. And the fact that I didn't, and not only did I not, but it is my favorite non-original trilogy Star Wars piece of entertainment, is mind-blowing to me. That's how good this show is. Take that. Oh, also, we have been terrible people for not having mentioned B2 EMO or whatever, B2 emo.
I can lie. I have adequate power reserves.
Don't tell anybody you saw me. Don't tell anybody you know where I am.
That's 2 lies.
That little robot, his little robot was so adorable. I loved him. When he fell over and the other droid was being mean to him.
I don't want to be alone. I want Mama Marva.
Love that little guy.
Yeah, Andor. If you haven't watched it by now, go do it.
Agreed. So that's number 4. So guess what, guys? You figured out next week's gonna be nothing but gushing about the original trilogy. So
as it should be.
As it should be. It's probably gonna be a short episode because it's what we're gonna do. What more can you say that hasn't already been said about these 3 excellent movies? And then we'll get into the whole ranking them. What do we got coming up next week?
Our next episode will be Star Wars Ahsoka Part 7, Dreams and Madness. Hera must answer to the New Republic while a reunion takes place far, far away. Until next time, please like, subscribe, show your ideas for a ship docking with a tower to a 14-year-old boy before committing them to film, and share the podcast with someone who might enjoy it. Rate us 5 stars on your listening app of choice, and you can find us on social media. I am at MLHilty2452 on Instagram, Threads, Serialized, and Blue Skies. Blue Sky.
And
just one.
Yep.
Blue Sky.
Just the one Blue Sky, not the other ones. And you can find me on Blue Sky, Letterboxd, and Twitter at Jagged2319. You can also contact the show at geekspeaklouder@gmail.com or on Blue Sky by searching Geeks Speak Louder Than Nerds. You can also join our Facebook group and follow us on Twitter at Geek Speak Loud. Until next time, I'm Nick Farrow.
And I'm Mike Hilty. Thank you for tuning in to Geek Speak Louder Than Nerds. Catchphrase.
Hi, everybody. Okay, so we have our weekly rewatch podcast for TV shows, movies, and what happened this week.
How about I cut in and say, what about A Force Awakens? And you just cut me off. You just cut me off and you're just like, no. And you just start saying, my name is Nick Farrow.
Okay, that's actually perfect. Yes, let's do that.
There's no Krispy Kreme around here because all the Krispy Kremes just got up and left like a bunch of jerks.
They had spent all that money on the Power Rangers movie.
Well, and the Chuck E. Cheese that is by us.
Oh yeah,
I tied it back to a Chuck E. Cheese thing.
They haven't heard that one yet.
Well, they will. We in the industry we call that a tease.
Oh shit! I forgot we didn't have to record an intro this week. I have a whole Chuck E. Cheese one.
I envision Mars like in one of 2 ways. One, I envision it with the same problems that the Disney movie Rocket Man had, and I'm not sure that I want to put up with that.
You're afraid that the guy in the suit connected to you is going to fart?
I mean, that is a grave concern.
The giant space whale that also has magic magnet bones. I don't know about you, but usually bones don't just stick together when there's no sinewy tissue bits connecting them anymore. Like
For anyone who hasn't seen Ahsoka, which again, why are you listening to this? If
No. Stop trying to convince people to stop listening just because they haven't seen the show. We're doing an excellent job of telling them what happened. We're so good at this, they don't need to see the show.
I just love the visual that you just said. The witches then pull their balls back out.
Oh, my good friend. You are so in for a treat then. I'm like trying not to look at you because I'm like, I gotta get through this.
That's what she said. Back at the spire, we get an upskirch.
It was! Did you not see it? It go right up the it was so upskirt. Okay, the ship comes in and lowers itself onto the tower, and then they shoot it from above where a bunch of white things are going into it. Come on! The imagery! Who let that pass the censors?
Does the Labyrinth of Evil have David Bowie in it?
Dear listeners and Mike, if you read any Star Wars books
Are
at
you
all,
implying I'm not a listener?
well, no, I'm talking to you. Labyrinth of Evil, Revenge of the Sith, The Rise of the Dark Lord make up a trilogy of books that pretty much takes you on the journey of Anakin's fall to the dark side and then what he deals with after becoming Darth Vader. It's so good. It is amazing storytelling by two fantastic authors who work together to make these books. And then if you like Darth Vader as a character, this totally lets you buy into how he could have fallen to the dark side and then why he stayed in the dark side for as long as he did. I want to stop the podcast right now just to start reading them all over again. Like, I might pull them out as soon as we're done here. I might just start reading Labyrinth of Evil.
Okay, challenge accepted. No, because...
Oh, you think you're going to get me to watch Dirty Dancing Havana Nights?
I'll friend Julie on Facebook to get her.
It'll be easier for you to get me to watch Dirty Dancing Havana Nights than it would be to get Julie to watch anything.